the Labour Party makes it all the more important that with the greatest humility, Labour's conference in Galway pays tribute to his lifelong contribution. Born in Dublin, Alf has incorporated the warm humanity delivered from below of Dubliners, connecting their life and wit, for example, to the literary world of James Joyce. His novellas, Out of Focus and The Corpus in the Library, from the Dorky Archive Press, have been compared to the work of Flann O'Brien. But those of us who have had the value of his friendship know the distinctiveness and uniqueness of Alf. Committed to the great public institutions that libraries are, he served as director of both the National Library of Ireland and later the Library of the University College Galway. During all of the time he was making an invaluable contribution to our archives. He was publishing also on Labour history, leading up just recently to his research on the letters of William Paul Dowling from Tasmania. A fine critic in matters cultural, Alf wrote some of the very earliest important work on film, for example. Many of us in the Labour Party will know Alf through his songwriting, his ironic, heroic and humorous undermining of pomposity and all that was shallow. A supporter of all the great struggles, referenda and multitudinous confrontations in favour of civil rights at home and abroad, Alf is a person of courage. If the test of a life was to be what was delivered with generosity, regularity, and an insistence for it not to be noted, there would be nobody to compare with Alf McLaughlin. And I have to say that as the Labour seat was built up in Galway for decades, he never missed a Saturday to be present, to organise with me, to offer solidarity, to share the disappointments as well as the achievements on behalf of Labour. There simply can't be anyone that we can compare to Alf McLaughlin. Is fear in our era, Nila Lehe Da. Alf McLaughlin. Paddy Mulgannon from Galway City East Branch, Galway West. Paddy Mulgannon is currently a member of the Galway City East Branch of the Labour Party, and he was, like myself, reared in County Clare. He began his working life as a truck driver first in Mullingar, where he joined the Irish Transport and General Workers Union in 1948. Paddy continued to play a very active role in trade union representation for all of his working life, and often in difficult circumstances. Paddy moved to Galway in 1951, where he worked with CIE until he joined Roadstone, where he stayed for another 30 years. And during this time, Paddy was continuously a delegate on the Galway Council of Trade Unions, where he served for many, many years. Paddy was involved in organising various marches and protests in Galway by the Council of Trade Unions, including the PAYE tax protest. In the late 60s, Paddy Mulgannon joined the Labour Party and down through the years has been an active campaigner for the party in Galway. Apart from his Labour Party work, Paddy's contribution to community life in Galway deserves acknowledgement. A founder member of the Merview Credit Union, where he has served on the board of directors and various committees. Paddy is also involved in the Wheelchair Association, the Order of Malta, the Senior Citizens and the Active Retirements Association. He served on the advisory committee of ANCO and is a delegate to the Senior Citizens Parliament. Many of these interests Paddy shares with his wife Margaret. The couple will be married for 55 years in September, have 4 children, 3 girls and a boy, and 5 grandchildren, who I am sure, like us, are all delighted that Paddy Mulgannon, a shining light in our community and the local Labour Party, is receiving this long service award tonight. Paddy Mulgannon. Now, Tom Feeney, Galway City East Branch, Galway West. And there should have been a big blast of music to introduce this, as you will see. A baker by profession, Tom worked in Silk's Bakery for 14 years before moving to Leighton House Bakery, where he worked until his retirement in 1977. Tom joined the Irish Bakers and Confectionery Union in 1943, and during his time in Leyden House he served for many years as the shop steward. He married Edna Walsh in 1952, and the couple had 7 children and many, many happy years together before Edna passed away in June 2006. Tom has been involved in every campaign since then and has earned the title of the best-known canvasser in the Galway Labour Party. Tom was one of the team that contributed to my own election to Dáil, and few will appreciate more than Tom the long-fought struggle it was for Labour to take that seat. Outside of the Labour Party and his family, Tom's other passion is music. He joined the St. Patrick's Brass Band in 1960, where he played both the euphonium and the French horn. Tom is current life president of the band, which has played for 3 American presidents, along with Pope John Paul II. His singing talents were also put to good use when he joined the Abbey Choir and the Cathedral Choir in Galway. Tom is what one might say is a militant culture. Tom Feeney has never flinched from spreading the good news of the Labour Party in Galway and beyond. His loyalty, his tireless commitment over many decades is truly appreciated by all in the Labour Party, particularly in Galway West, and we are delighted to present him with a Long Service Achievement Award tonight. Tom Feeney. Mick Faherty, Oran Moorclair, Galway Branch, Galway West. Mick Faherty is a member of the Labour Party in a rural area of Galway West constituency. A well-liked and respected community activist, he has been the face of Labour in Corrandalla. Mick Faherty was born in Market Street, Galway, in 1929. Before he was even born, his father had died tragically, and he was reared by his aunt. As part of the great loss of immigration from the west of Ireland, in 1947, Mick left to live in Birmingham, where he worked on the buses. There he met his wife Maureen. They married in 1949 and had 4 children. Sadly, Maureen passed away since, and one of his sons also died at a young age. On the Faherty's return to Dublin in 1963, Mick worked on the buses with what was then Dublin's City Services, where he helped establish the National Busmen's Union. He was to remain an active trade unionist and Labour supporter from then on. In 1973, the family returned to Galway, where he worked with CIE. On his return, he joined the local Labour Party, where he has played an active role in every campaign and election since then, including the last local elections, where Labour narrowly missed a county council seat in the Ardmore-Clare Galway electoral area by 3 votes. The members of Galway West constituency wish to express their gratitude to Mick for his support and hard work over almost 4 decades. We are delighted to present him with a Long Service Award tonight. Mick Faherty. That's all of mine.
Our next awardees are 2 brothers who have given between them more than 100 years of service to the Labour Party. And they come from North Tipperary, from Nina. And I have to say, this time last year, when we were in Mullingar, I think I remember saying to people that Alan Kelly was going to win. And when he did, along with Nessa and Prunchis de Rossa in the European elections. Central to the victories that the Labour Party is building up in places like Tipperary are the Lewis family, and in particular 2 brothers, Frank Lewis from the Nina branch and his younger brother, Ger Lewis, who is also from the Nina branch. Both of the Lewis brothers have been public representatives, and like many people associated with the Labour Party, they have served as union officials for the trade union branches in Nina. Frank, the older brother, started working in the Irish aluminium factory, where he was instrumental in organising the factory's first union. Frank was the first full-time trade union official in Nenagh, and he retired in 1987. He served with distinction on North Tipperary County Council on a number of occasions and was chairman in the 1970s and in the middle of the 1980s. Ger, who has also served as a public representative, has served on Nenagh Town Council with distinction and has worked both with CIE and for the ITGWU, eventually taking over and succeeding his big brother Frank as union organiser for the union in Nenagh. Ger also wrote Loosening the Chains, a book about the trade union struggle for recognition and the fight for workers' rights in Nenagh. So I want to ask Michael D now to present the award to the Lewis brothers. Thank you. There is a poem, and Michael D can correct me if I'm wrong, by Paddy Kavanagh, which talks about if ever you go to Dublin town in 100 years or more, and if ever you go to Dublin town, and if you went to Dublin town in the 1950s or the 1960s, you would have heard, or indeed today, you would hear a man with an extraordinary voice talking, campaigning and arguing for workers and for people in suburbs and in the inner city of Dublin over time. During the great tax marches of the 1980s, this man, Sam Nolan, was the secretary of the Dublin Trades Council. And in those days as well, when it wasn't fashionable to be somebody who supported the ending of apartheid in South Africa, the Dublin Trades Council, led by the leadership of people like Sam Nolan, were to the fore in not just emphasising the rights of workers and working people in Ireland and in Dublin, but right across the world, and particularly in South Africa, where he was one of those people who supported the Dunn Store strikers and called for the release of Nelson Mandela from jail, which eventually happened 20 years ago. But the amazing thing about Sam is that although I understand he's celebrating a significant birthday this year, and it's not 60 and it's not 70, so I leave you to guess, he's still a campaigning activist. And that's the point, I think, about old socialists and old trade union officials. They really don't fade away. They campaign on forever, and they reappear in places like the Senior Citizens Parliament. So all I can say is that, like the song Forever Young, we have Sam Nolan with us tonight, and I am so proud to present the award to him, because he has been somebody who's certainly been a fixture in my political life. And whenever there was a cause that represented the cause of labour and the cause of the trade union movement, Sam has always been to the fore, not just in talking about the cause, but in discussing and explaining, so that through discussion we could advance, and through campaigning we could win what people like Sam have campaigned for. I'll ask Michael D to present the award now. sometimes people who don't know very much about the Labour Party, or indeed about the trade union movement, think about the Labour Party and the trade union movement as being an urban phenomenon and a kind of towny phenomenon as well. But the heart of the Labour Party, and remember the Labour Party was founded in Clonmel, lies very much in the towns and villages spread through the 4 provinces of Ireland. And our next award recipient, Tim O'Connor, from the Lanesborough branch in Roscommon, South Leitrim, was actually born in Cork, but he moved to Lanesborough, to County Longford in the 1950s, and played an active role in the Amalgamated Engineering Union, representing Bord na Móna's engineering workers. He served the union in a variety of capacity, from shop steward up to divisional and regional committee member. And the union has recognised the kind of service that he provided to the union and its members. He retired in 1988. He's been active in the Labour Party in County Longford since the establishment of the first branch in the county, serving as branch treasurer, putting up the posters and campaigning for our candidates. He's a regular delegate to party conferences. He's one of those people that journalists talk about their stamina for entertainment, for singing and for dancing. So Tom is going well and strong. And again, it's an opportunity here tonight for you delegates, for all of us, to say thank you for these people who have made the future of the Labour Party and have brought us to where we are. I'll now ask Michael D to present the award.
Tim O'Connor.
Our final recipient tonight is a very special person. Councillor Jane Dillon-Byrne is, I think, the longest-serving public representative and councillor, not just in the Labour Party, but I think probably in the whole of Ireland. Jane is somebody whom I have known since I became involved in the Labour Party. She is a tower of strength. She's incorruptible. She's served both on the old Dublin County Council and more recently on Dunleary Rathdown. She's very famous for a number of things. She's one of the great swimmers of Ireland, out there at the 40-foot in Sandy Cove, day in, day out, summer and winter. She's a sculptor. She's somebody who has devoted a large part of her public life to promoting the arts in Ireland. And she has also been somebody who has fought and campaigned for a greener environment in terms of council services to the people in their area. She's here in Galway tonight with her son Cian, who, as it happens, is the manager of the Great Southern, now the Merrick Hotel, where I think people will be later on for the function. So can I just say that Jane has been one of the women who have served the Labour Party as a public representative. She has been a complete trailblazer and somebody who has really been a moving force in the Labour Party in Dublin City and Dublin County. Thank you, Jane. And again, Michael D will now present you the award. We now have the presentation of the Larkin Award, which is an award which is made at Labour Party conference for somebody who has made a very special contribution to rooting out corruption, injustice and fighting for the kind of values that Jim Larkin represented in his political and his trade union life. I think all of us have been transfixed over the last decade by the litany of horror stories that have emerged in relation to issues like the lives of children in institutions and the situation in relation to clerical sexual abuse. Campaigning journalism is as important for democracy as people getting elected and free and fair elections and an honest and incorruptible judiciary. The award for the Larkin Prize this year goes to one of Ireland's greatest campaigning journalists, somebody who has worked in RTE, who has worked for a wide variety of media in Ireland and abroad. Can I ask you to celebrate the Larkin Award to Mary Reftery, and Michael D. will read the citation.
Comrades, we honour Mary Reftery tonight in recognition of her outstanding work in investigative journalism combined with her advocacy for truth, justice and human rights. She has made an indelible contribution in the area of poverty and its consequences. In particular, we recognise her contribution and her determination to tell the full story of the institutional abuse of vulnerable children in Ireland. An abuse that took place for decades, that broke the lives of thousands of the most defenceless citizens of this state. In the autumn of 1999, Mary's book on the abuse of children in Ireland's institutions, Suffer the Little Children, co-authored with Dr. Ora Sullivan of TCD, was published and became an immediate bestseller. It was Mary's acclaimed documentary series, States of Fear, that resulted in the historic 1999 apology by the Taoiseach on behalf of the Irish state to victims of child abuse, and which also led to the establishment of the Ryan Commission of Inquiry into Child Abuse. In 2002, Mary produced and directed the award-winning Cardinal Secrets, which led to the establishment of the Murphy Commission of Investigation into Child Sexual Abuse in the Archdiocese of Dublin. The report of this commission was published in November 2009, again to an enormous response both in Ireland and internationally. We honour Mary for telling the story, an important story, however difficult it has been for the victims to hear. We recognise, too, her campaigning commentary aimed at getting full acceptance by the institutions of church and state to take sufficient responsibility and make appropriate redress for what has happened. The Ryan report was finally published in May 2009 and provoked an enormous response both nationally and internationally. States of Fear won an Irish Film and Television Academy Award for Best Documentary, together with a Special Jury Gold Award at the World Fest in Houston, Texas, a Silver Screen Award at the United States International Film and Video Festival in Chicago, and a World Medal at the New York Festivals. In addition, it was judged one of Europe's top 10 documentaries for 1999 by the Prix Europe in Berlin. All through these recent events that Mary has written for the Irish Times, teasing out the issues and doggedly pursuing all those guilty through deed or negligence for the abuse. This year the Abbey Theatre commissioned Mary to write No Escape, a piece of documentary theatre based on the Ryan Report, compiled and editing using only the contents of the Ryan Report in its public hearings. It opened this week in Dublin. We honour Mary for not allowing Irish people to forget what has happened, so that it may not happen again and be cloaked in secrecy. For her work, advocacy and solidarity with the most vulnerable, we ask Mary Reftery to accept this conference's Larkin Award.
Thank you very much indeed, everybody. I'm most honoured to receive this, and delighted, I suppose, on behalf of all of the people throughout the years who have shared with me their stories, their horror stories. I suppose it was harder for them to tell their stories than it was for me to be the conduit for those stories to reach the public domain and to provoke a sufficient public response that there should be some response of justice to those people. And I'm always conscious, and acutely conscious in terms of receiving awards for programs like States of Fear, that these really are for the people who told those stories, because without them we as journalists are absolutely nothing, and they need to take a leap of faith, if you like, to do that. And it was never easy for them to do it, and it was particularly not easy 10 years ago when Ireland was a very different place in terms of accepting the horror stories that were emerging from tens of thousands of adults who had been through these institutions. I've been curious in one way about the nature of the systems that gave rise to this kind of abuse, because people think that public-private partnerships are a sort of a relatively new idea, a sort of newfangled thing, but in fact in Ireland we have one that's as old as the state and even older, and it's called our education system, particularly our primary and secondary education system. It's a public-private partnership that also gave rise to the industrial schools and to the litany of atrocities that occurred in them. It's a system whereby the state pays money to provide a service to entirely private organisations and then doesn't properly scrutinise what they're actually doing with that service, or in terms of vindicating and protecting the lives of the most vulnerable of our citizens in this regard. We continue to do this in terms of handing over money as a state to entirely private organisations to care, for instance, for people, children and adults with disabilities. We don't scrutinise in any way the kind of services that we provide. We continue with the template in our primary and secondary education system of passing over money to private organisations. They're mainly religious denominations, of course, mainly the Catholic Church, to provide services. And we know now legally through a series of court cases that the state carries no legal responsibility for the safety of children within that system. That rests entirely with an organisation that has now been subjected to 3 major judicial investigations and has been seriously and devastatingly indicted for its failure to protect children in its care. And I suppose really, it seems to me the purpose of awards like this is really to focus attention on those continuing issues which confront us as a democratic republic, and in which we have not yet engaged in an adult conversation about how we wish to organise services for the most vulnerable of our citizens, be they children or be they people with disabilities. And it's really to provoke that kind of conversation and that kind of discussion that I have channeled the sort of work that I've done. Slowly it's beginning, but I believe that probably everybody here in this room could give it a very substantial kick-start if you started tomorrow discussing these issues, raising them in every possible opportunity, because I fundamentally and firmly believe that it is our duty as citizens to make democratically accountable all of the services we provide for vulnerable people so that they can have a say and a right in those services. Thank you very much indeed, and thank you very much for this.